IELTS Practice Speaking Tests.
Prepare for IELTS practice tests. Produced by InSearch English. Recording produced by Daryl Hilton Productions at Blackfoot Sound. Copyright UTS, InSearch 2011.
Practice Speaking Test 1.
Good afternoon. My name is Andy. Could you tell me your name, please?
Mikhailo Galovic is my name.
Thank you, Mikhail. I'd like you to tell me about your hometown or city, please.
It is Belgrade, capital of a former Yugoslavia, now Serbia. 1.5 million inhabitants, place at the confluation of two big rivers, Danube and Sava.
Can you tell me about the most interesting things in Belgrade?
Probably its past, colorful past, I would say, and then physically the configuration and dynamics of the place.
And could you describe places of special interest I could visit near where you live?
Oh yes, there are many wonderful natural interest places, so to say, and places of historical interest, but mostly the famous monasteries, medieval monasteries from, say, 13th century on.
And what would be the best way for me to get to those places?
I guess the best would be to simply look up the travel agency that deals with inter-Serbia tours, and especially the monastery tours, and they're well guided and you will be well taken care of.
Should I go there at any special time of year?
Certainly, as in whole Europe, I think the best time is sometime in spring or autumn.
Springtime or autumn?
Yes, say April, May, and then perhaps September, early October.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you for that. I'd like to ask you a few questions about food and diet now. What do you usually eat for breakfast?
Well, I'm not much of a breakfast eater, but so I tend to have a light breakfast, but say people tend to eat a lot for breakfast, and it's all sorts of things, I guess, meat-based, and milk and hot milk and hot tea is accompanying all that.
And what is the most important meal of the day, in your opinion, Mikhail?
Well, in my opinion, as I'm told, it should be the breakfast, but for me personally, I love early dinners. That's my preference. I'm not saying it is the most important. It's the one that I like the most.
And what should we eat to stay healthy?
I would say certainly not a heavy food that takes a lot to digest. So I would recommend a lot of vegetables and fruit, and fish and chicken rather than red meat, although I wouldn't discard red meat just like that at all.
Will people's diet change in the future?
I have impression, because we are witnessing the obesity daily in many countries, so it's all around us, and it's becoming a very serious problem, and I have impression that everybody starts focusing on that. So I have impression that we'll get more attention to diets that will make us feel light and agile and being able to perform. So I guess the clever combination of our food intake is more important than only what we eat. It is not about just what we shouldn't eat. I think it's more like how we eat it and when. So we should maybe start our meals with easily digestible things such as fruit, and finish with heavier stuff, rather the other way around.
Thank you, Mikhail. Now, I'd like to ask you to speak for 1 to 2 minutes on a topic. You have 1 minute to plan your answer. Here is a pencil and paper to make some notes. Here is your topic. I'd like you to describe a celebration you recently participated in.
The candidate now has 1 minute to make notes and prepare an answer.
Thank you. Could you start speaking now, please? I will stop you after 2 minutes.
By the end of January, precisely on 27th of January last, I was at a friend's place on Central Coast as a guest to his family feast, and he was his family was celebrating their family patron saint day, which is a very important feast for the Serbs in the Orthodox tradition. So it was interesting to see how that particular feast is being celebrated. Originated centuries ago, it is still very strong, going strong, and very few things changed. I was amazed to witness. But the main thing was that over there in Europe, given the time of the year, these feasts are usually done celebrated in November, December, January. It is cold, so the accompanying food is corresponding. It's heavy and all that you need to eat during that time. Whereas here we were sweating in the hot January, and yet we had the same type of food that we would be eating in January in Europe. So that was interesting. But the most important thing about that type of feast and celebration is that the hosts, both my friend and his wife, were standing on their feet all the time, the whole day, absolutely being impeccable hosts to every whim or need that we guests would have, some 20 of us. So it was really a special day, and all of us, 20 people there, felt very, very special.
Thank you, Mikhail. Mikhail, are there many similar celebrations where you come from?
Yes, but this is the most important one, I think.
Thank you. Now, let's talk more about traditions and celebrations. What role do traditional ceremonies play in the social life of people in your country?
They have always played an important role, but I have impression that it is more so the case these days, when even the youth is embracing them, simply feeling need to go back to their roots.
And what traditions were important for your grandparents, say, 50 years ago?
Apart from that Slava or family patron saint day, all other major and secondary Orthodox Christian festivities or festive days are important or were important as well, like such as Christmas or Easter, for instance. So that keeps being the major focus of my tradition and people.
Mm-hmm. And which traditions are we likely to continue to celebrate in the future?
But I would say precisely those that we mentioned before. I have a feeling that they are simply going strong, that they are not fading, simply because in this time and era people are overwhelmed by the velocity, by the speed. So at the same time they feel need to go back to their own beginnings and traditions. So it is simply reviving what we already had.
How would you describe young people's attitudes towards tradition?
Well, I would say that at the beginning many of young people would maybe not embrace fully the idea of going through through every painstaking detail of preparations and behavior codes for all these celebrations and feasts. But then gradually they will become part of their lives, and that would be the connection with their families and extended families. So they would kind of go more and more into it, and trying to adhere to every rule that that tradition was brought to them by their parents and grandparents. So at the beginning, maybe the youth would take it lightly on the surface only, but then later, I think the traditions would be embraced fully.
And do you think customs and traditions are changing these days?
I would say so, inevitably, because of the adjustment of the urban to the urban living, if you wish, and to the fast times we live in. So definitely there are concessions to what used to be done before, but the core, which is much more important, is always preserved. At least has been the case so far.
Do you think traditions and customs are affected by advertising?
I never actually gave it a thought. They might be, but again, in my personal experience, I haven't seen any kind of direct influence that would change or alter, take people from their original directions, whatever the advertisement is about.
Do some countries celebrate traditions more than others?
I wouldn't say so. I have impression that all countries celebrate traditions, or rather the people who live in these countries. Even if some new country is a conglomerate of different people, all these different people would stick to their old traditions. That's how I see it. So people who wouldn't follow the traditions would do it in all sorts of countries or in any country.
Thank you, Michaelo. That's the end of this speaking test.